Welcome back into HQ. The NHL Trade Deadline has come and gone, and while we normally talk about the Wild Wild West, we are going to talk about the Wild Wild East. Plenty of faces in new places. You've seen some of it. The biggest talking point, the Rangers getting their man in Patrick Kane. Timo Myers has a new home with the Devils. But overall, who are the winners and losers when it comes to the trade deadline? For more on that, we welcome in NHL expert, former longtime player, our good friend Alan May. We're going to just focus on the Eastern Conference because it has been absolutely insane. They load up ahead of the playoffs here. Probably the Rangers and Toronto, the most talking points there. But overall, your thoughts on the Eastern Conference?
Well, it's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. When all of the trades have gone down, the amount of draft picks that have exchanged hands, some teams look like they have no draft picks. Some have, 20, 30 in the next three drafts. So it's been kind of crazy. And you've never seen a trade deadline prior to this. The last 10 days to 2 weeks, whatever it is, there have been about 50 different deals, and they've been very big. It's been a crazy time. And what we saw in Tampa, where they traded, it was the very first time ever they traded a first, a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth round draft pick, plus a former first round draft pick just a couple of years ago for a third, fourth line player. It's unprecedented. The teams are loading up at the top of the East, and I think it's hysterical. It's awesome as a hockey fan, but there's going to be some GMs, I think, out in the street after selling the farm.
Okay, well, let's dive into some of those teams there. Let's talk about Boston. Look, everyone's trying to keep up with them. For as well as they're doing, and sometimes you see teams, they're doing great. You stay still, don't break it. It's not broken. They added guys like Dmitry Orlov. Are you surprised that they made so many moves, and was it a good thing?
Well, Don Sweeney, the general manager of Boston, seems to be all in every single season that he thinks he's got a chance to win the cup. And with this team, I thought it was less is more. Dmitry Orlov is a defenseman that they got from the Washington Capitals that was probably underappreciated, underused, and really can fill in such big footsteps and are such a huge role with the Bruins. And you can play him on the left or right side. You can play him up and down the lineup. And him skating with Charlie McAvoy, they look like the best defensive pair in the league right now. Orlov has 7 points in just 4 games. He's been huge. So you get a guy that can play on your first unit, second or third, wherever you want, power play, penalty kill. He's a stud. And then a role player in Garnet Hathaway for the fourth line, He's really good. He knows his role, and you want to have role players in the bottom six that know exactly what they are to do. He is supposed to be seek and destroy, play great defense, tough on the wall, limited with the puck, but that's okay. He knows it. And then they got a goal scorer in Tyler Bertuzzi that can play on your third line, and if they have any injuries, he can go up and down the lineup. I thought that was a great get. They didn't have to sell the farm for the guys that they had. I really like what they've done, and to me, they are still the favorites.
Let's talk about the Rangers. Look, their first move was Tarasenko, but the biggest move at the trade deadline, they landed Patrick Kane. A lot of people thought he was going to get moved. Toronto in the mix a little bit, but how clutch was it for the Rangers to get this deal done?
Well, I just think it was absolutely amazing. I thought when they got Tarasenko, there's no way they could get Kane, but a 3-team trade allows them to get Kane. And last night watching their game, even though they lost, there was a lot of shuffling. It's a huge get because Patrick Kane is still one of the best players, offensive players in the National Hockey League. He is a wizard on the power play. He's a magician with the puck. He plays with confidence. He has fun. He's a 3-time Stanley Cup champion. He was slinging the puck around last night. And the guy that's really lit it up there is Tarasenko. So I think their top 6 may be the best in the National Hockey League right now. I love their defensemen. I love their starting goaltender. And they're going to be a team. It's going to fall on coaching and health. If they do not get to the finals or do not get to at least to the Eastern Conference Finals, you're going to have to look at the coaching staff and the role players there. They're good enough to me, but I think this all falls on coaching because they have a beautiful roster. If you're any coach in the National Hockey League, you say, give me the Rangers roster and I can win a Stanley Cup.
As I mentioned, so much happened in the East, so we're going to stay there. Let's talk about the Devils toward the top of that conference there. Their big add, Timo Meier. It's a young team that is overachieving, and they're adding a fairly young guy to the mix. Do you think they should have gone with maybe a veteran? But if not, how much do you like Meier, and how much does he support that roster?
I love him, and I think every team in the National Hockey League wants a big physical player that can skate, provide offense, play defense, kill penalties, go on the power play. And he's one of the old men on their roster. I think he's like 28 years old, so it's certainly not old, but he adds a lot of good NHL experience. He understands his role. And once again with them, do they really believe that they're in it to win the Stanley Cup this year? I don't know, because they don't have enough leather in the playoffs yet. Goaltending, they've got it in the hands of Vitek Vanacek right now. I do love their defensemen that they've got. They're very big. They can play defense. They can move the puck up the ice. So they're a solid team in their own right. I like the get for Timo Meier because he's not just for now. He's not just a rental. He will be there for a long, long time.
Thumbs up so far from Alan May here. Let's talk about the Leafs. Look, they missed out on Kane. They did land Ryan O'Reilly. They did some other tinkering as well. How do they look after the deadline?
Well, I kind of like the players they've got right now, like what they've added, but I think there's way too many, and it's going to mess with the chemistry of your team. Right now, their roster and the last few minutes, I don't know what's happened with the trade deadline, what's broke, because it takes a little while, sometimes up to 2 hours after, to see if they moved any players. But they have 9 NHL defensemen under contract. I think that's way too many guys. You're going to have disgruntled players. You're going to have players that are wondering whether they're getting a jersey. Ryan O'Reilly, I love him. He's a heart and soul type of guy. And you look at it, did they get faster? Did they get slower? Do they have guys that understand the role? O'Reilly can play anywhere. He can do anything. I don't know if the speed is there. I don't know if the body will hold up in the playoffs. I don't know if they have the goaltending. So I'm not really huge on all of the trades they made. There were so many additional players added to their roster. Sam Lafferty, Noel Chari. You look at O'Brien, then all the defensemen. I really think that there's a lot of room for error with them. Some of the players well past their prime. Some we still don't know what they are. So that's going to be a tough one. There's a lot of pressure to play in Toronto, probably more than anywhere in the National Hockey League. Not
a great grade for the Leafs. Let's talk winners and losers then. Let's start with the good. Who are the winners at the trade deadline?
I would have to say the Bruins because they did just enough. And I have to say the Rangers because they added high-end, believable players into their lineup. 3 Stanley Cups for Patrick Kane. You add 1 for Tarasenko. Both players are healthy. They want to be there. They fit in well with their top 6. Kane back with Panarin, who he lit it up with in Chicago before they kind of started transitioning their roster. So I look at them and I have to love what they did. And then the Edmonton Oilers on the other side, because we haven't talked about the West yet, they needed to add a real defenseman to their roster. They got a little bit older of a player in Matthias Ekholm, but he's a guy that wants to play there. He's 6'4". He can play left side or right side. I've seen him play on the power play in the past, but they brought him there to shut players down, to do well in the penalty kill. So to me, the Bruins, the Rangers, the Oilers, and I think those teams are all sitting pretty to get themselves to the finals.
We'll give it an A+, B+ there. Not really sure how you grade them, but all winners according to you. Let's go to the other side of it. And you kind of alluded to this when you're talking about the Leafs. The Leafs are your losers.
They sold a lot, and they really, to me, they brought in a lot of players. I don't know if the speed is there. I know Luke Shen, they just got back. He played a couple years in Tampa as their 6'7" defenseman, kind of had a guy that I thought was going to be out of the league 5 years ago, but he figured it out. He's good if you only play him about 12 to 14 minutes a game. Last night, they had him on the top pairing with their defenseman O'Reilly. So to me, that's a tough one. Eric Gustafsson, to me, he was -1 last night. He gave up a puck on the power play for a shorthanded goal for the Calgary Flames. He's a guy that, to me, is a power play specialist. I'm not sure how much he can take the heavy play in the playoffs. McCabe, I like. Lafferty, I like as role players. But once again, I think they added way too many players, and they've added players since about Christmas. So altogether, there's about 8 or 9 new players, and they deleted a couple players that I thought fit in very well there. So they're all in. I think they did a little too much. Chemistry is important. Disgruntled players can always cause you a problem, and the pressure of being in Toronto. So to me, that's a tough one.
Alan, we were going through your career and we noticed a little pattern here with Nemestikov. He was traded this year for about the 4th time in about 5 years there. And looking at when you were traded, it's fairly similar, the years. I mean, when you're a player and you're going up against this trade deadline, I mean, are you sitting there with your bags packed? What's going through your head when you're going through this?
Well, a couple of times I was shocked when I was traded. Other times I already had my bags packed and I couldn't wait to go. I'm going to say I'm the OG on this trade deadline record. I hope no one passes me because it keeps me relevant around trade deadline time. And I'm going to say I'm the North American record holder. He's the Russian record holder. No one knows how to say his name correctly the very first time they hear it or look at it. So I'm going to say I'm unforgettable because my name is so easy. And Vladdy, he's got a nice name. It's a lot of letters, too many vowels for my liking, but congratulations, and hope he does something at his new destination.
I phonetically spelled it about 4 different times to make sure that I got it right. Alan, you were always relevant to us. We appreciate your time going through the NHL and the trade deadline there as all these teams trying to make a push to the playoffs. Taking a look at odds to win the Stanley Cup. Of course, you got the Bruins there at the top. They did make some big moves, sitting at plus 400, followed up by the Avalanche, the Hurricanes, and then the Rangers getting their man in Kane. Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.